Hello everyone, Alternative Potato here, and today we're going to learn how to make a save file in a network game using Bevy. Those titles are becoming a little biggie, aren't they? But anyways, I think I transitioned screens. I did. I should stop being insecure about that. So first of all, I think I need to explain you guys how this actually works. Okay? Oh, he actually saves my information. Wow, god damn it. So let me just get rid of all this. This is just like me trying to understand stuff. So first, I guess we need to start with how it works. Okay. So save files are quite simple. They are not difficult. Our save files are bin files. Okay. What are bin files? You might be wondering, what are bin files? Nothing more than just a serialization type that really doesn't occupy a lot of time, a lot of space. So it's just like a binary code. Imagine that like this. That's what a bin file is. Okay. Let's not enter too much in detail here because this doesn't matter. Just think that when we do serialization to this guy, which means basically the action of saving into the file, it's going to be a very fast process. Okay, that's all you need to know. And that's basically how our save files, that's the data type, or I would say the formatting type that we are using for our save files. That's the first thing you guys need to know. The second thing is our save files are defined by our server. Okay, it's not defined by our client because hacks, security measure. This is a security measure. Okay, so you need to be careful when it comes to this. It's not defined by our client because of hacks. It's defined by our server because then server can actually, before you actually save information, uh, you can actually check that information. That's why we do it in server. You can do it in client if you don't care if people hack in your game. Risk of Rain is a good example of a game that actually doesn't care. But you can do in server, and a game that is actually following that tradition is going to be like any type of AAA game. For example, League of Legends. It's something that probably has server validation when it comes to the actions of the user to check if they are possible. You know, and that usually goes with save files too. Specifically, if you want to have some sort of currency mechanics, which is our case scenario. Okay. So that's why so that's basically like what you guys need to know. There are save files, are binary files, and that we are going to do them in the server division of our network infrastructure. So let's just move right into the code itself. Okay. So here, a few things that I'm going to show you guys. When we end here, I'm going to actually show this code actually working. But the mechanic that's actually working is a mechanic that I didn't show you guys before. It's a character customization mechanic. So don't worry too much about the character customization part of the code. Just care about the save mechanic. Okay. So how does the save mechanic work? It's really simple. First, we initialize a resource called core save info map. You're probably wondering, what the hell is this resource? Well, you can see right here its data type, you know. So you're gonna notice that core save info map is a hash map that intakes a key that is our client ID and intakes core information. And this hash map is going to return core information, which is nothing more than a bundle of sorts. Okay, let me just try to find in on the code itself. I think he's right here. Yeah, core information is nothing more than a bundle, or if you're on 0.15, a required component. Okay, which is going to store a bunch of components that we intend to save. Okay, so in this case, it's going to state player visuals. So he's in this case, he's going to store player visuals with player ID, which is not something that necessarily you would need to save, but in this case, because of the way we actually grab the information and all that stuff, I just thought it would be nice to also have this guy. Okay, so a pointer to the client ID. That's what player ID is. Okay, he's not really a complex data structure. You can actually see on the repo below on the code, but he just points out the client of the given player entity. You know, um, and so that's basically the two informations that we're going to store into our save file. So that's the first thing you guys need to understand. The second thing is that after we do this resource, we're going to replicate him to our client. And you're probably wondering why. Well, to be completely honest, we don't actually use that guy that much on client. It's just a matter of like client having the information available to it for later stages, So it's usually really recommended that a client has that information also available because the amount of currency that's going to display, because currency is also going to be here, like the amount of currency the client has, that type of core information is going to be shared with it. That's why we're replicating this. Right now, I don't think I actually use core save info map in client, but when I make the currency mechanic, I'm pretty sure I'm going to do it. Okay, so let's just understand how we replicate resources first in Lightyear, okay? It's quite a simple workflow, to be completely honest. There's nothing really too complex. So the first thing you need to do is, of course, create the type that you want to register. But like the second thing you want to do is register that resource. Run this little command here, which is basically going to register the resource called core save info map. And here you're going to define the channel direction. It's something that I think I did before or explained to you guys before. I'm not 100% sure. But channel direction just tells who is going to replicate to who. So since core save info map is something that only server can change, it's going to be server to client. Okay. And second of all, the third thing is just running commands replicate. Let me just check if my audio is working. It is because the last video I actually didn't check and I lost like 20 minutes of video. But then you're going to run this command. Okay. Something that's also worth mentioning is that you need to initialize the resource both in client and in server. So you're gonna see that client also has this resource being initialized. If it's not a resource that needs to be initialized immediately, you of course can do commands insert resource when you actually need that resource. You don't want him to be available since the beginning. But usually in my game, I have the policy of always making available since the early stages of the development, because it's usually a good thing to have. Because most of the time it's going to be there. You need it to be there, so you don't have to do a lot of like optional statements. So, anyways, moving forward, here is a function that you guys don't need to care that much about. But here is basically like you're gonna notice that we are doing like save info map, and we are actually checking if the player is someone who actually logged in before or if he is a new player. But before we understand this guy, we actually need to move to our first function here, or like a second or startup function, which is create or read save file. Okay, so as the name implies, you're going to either create or read the save file that you have available. In this case, we already have the save file, but if he doesn't have a save file, he is supposed to create a new one. Okay, and that's pretty much what he does. That's pretty much what he does right now. And he's going to actually write the resource according to the information that is returned from the file. So of course, when we don't have the save file available, we're going to, create like a default core save info map and save into, the file, into the save file. And then of course we're going to insert him into the server. This default type, of course, right? And here the same things go, but the thing is we are going to deserialize from, which just basically means I'll grab the information from the save file. Okay, that's the two actions that we are going to do on this function. It's very rare that we actually do this. We only do this when we create the save file. I just did it like this to avoid the annoying no file existent error when we actually, because every time this guy changes, um, you need to actually create a new save file. That's something that's really important that you guys understand. So every time this guy changes, you need to create a new save file. So that's something important you guys know about because of the way like this is like if you're going to do serialize to the same file, if the types don't match, it's probably going to have a little bit of error because if it has a extra field, the types are not going to match. So he's going to like cry. He's going to, as the expression goes, cry. So usually, if you change the core save info map core information fields, try to create a new save file, because or else you're gonna get a very annoying error. And I think I also am expecting that error, if I'm not mistaken. Pretty sure I am. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I made an expect for it. But anyways, moving forward, we are going to replicate resource, and here we're going to have this handle new clients function. So every time a client connects, we're going to check if he's an old or new player. Of course, we're going to check because we know that we are going to have our save file available to us. So in this case, we know that client one is actually an old player logging in. And like if I make like for example client 14 or 15, you're gonna see that he actually gives me the information that hey, this player is new. Let's insert him into the map and actually save his information. The save information is really just a simple function that saves the information. I know there's a lot of things written here. This is correlated to bean code, uh, which is one of our dependencies. You can use something that is different from being called. You can use like JSON, for example, for save files if you feel like you want something more, readable. I personally don't care that much, so I just use like bean code. So I'm not gonna tell you guys like, oh, we have this dependency like bean code, because this is totally optional. You guys can have something different, okay? And here he's going to basically save that information, and that's all he does. When a new player logs in. And that's pretty much our save mechanics, okay? If you guys want to understand more about Bean Code itself, you can stay in this video. If you don't, you can just leave. Because Bean Code is just something totally optional, okay? So buff writer is nothing more than a serialization function, which is going to, as the name implies, write something into the file that we want to write. So basically, that's what he does. He's going to be the guy who's going to write the information, okay? And buff reader, as the name implies, is the guy who's going to read the information from the file itself. So that's pretty much it, guys. This is our little save mechanics with Bevy. And I hope you guys are available on the next part, because on the next part, we're going to understand more clearly how to spawn a predicted entity with Lightyear. Okay? Bye bye.